this is the world, and it's made up of many different people. Some people see the challenges in the world and some don't. Someone asked me the other day, why do you need to have a complementary currency? What's wrong with the one that we're using? And I realized that there's many people who aren't aware or aren't affected by the global disparity and disorder that exists. So the systems discussion is really aimed towards people who are open to seeing change happen and open to supporting that change and not looking for other people to solve the problems for them, other institutions, just to actively finding solutions. So we look at the mainstream, the human mainstream in the world. It's like this big river cross-section, and for some of the people on the side, the current's moving fast and things work, and each of these different industries are able to grow and develop and be successful in their own ways at different times. But then there are these other areas, these other countries where the current's not as fast, and these industries seem stifled. There's obviously, as we know, a flow of materials going from one side to the other, and there's a lot of other disorders that are in this story. But when we see that as a generalization of what we're dealing with, we can then look into each one of these industries and see that any of these industries have a core ethos, a core ideology, and there's businesses that are around those, and the businesses, the mainstream business that are around those feed back into that core belief. And then there are these fringe businesses, these ones that are on the outer edge of that, which are still connected inwards, but they're also looking outwards. They're looking for new solutions. They're not basing their business and their premise purely on that core belief. And these businesses are what's really interesting for the story in bringing change. They're in the Hypha Culture story, they're known as the grandparents. And then you've got this outer fringe of people and organizations around the world who are thinking and looking and asking questions and saying what else is possible. They're also a really major value in this story for each of these industries. And if we see over time how change can happen, we see how one mainstream starts to get affected by these little pockets of change, these pockets of activity where people are saying, no, we don't agree with this, we don't agree with this way that things are being run. And they start to put energy back towards the system, towards the status quo, to try to change it. And that happens for a long period of time. And then some in that energy start to focus forwards and start to say, well, we're using a lot of energy trying to change this old thing. We need to also look at building a new thing. And then they start to build this new way that runs parallel for a long time and works simultaneously with the old paradigm without any judgment. And then inevitably, once enough saturation and strength is with it, it can actually be independent and have its own core belief and direction. And these old lines slowly peter out over history, over time, because they're redundant and their time has passed. And another way to look at it is sort of, you've got this core belief system, this old world ideologies and the businesses that are around them, encasing them. And then you've got these complementary alternative businesses and organizations around those that are still connected, but they're looking somewhere else. And that's what we're working towards, this. And a lot of focus is going there. A lot of focus generally in the world is going here. But this whole progression is what needs to be looked at. How to achieve this, how to achieve a transition between where we are now and a true fork in the road, or a true line in the sand, if necessary, if evolution is not completely reached. Some will just fall away and others will continue. So this is a generalization of the story that we currently live in the world, and many will say, well, if you really want to form a new paradigm, it's a massive undertaking, and it is. But unless we start to look at that and address it, we'll constantly be there. We'll constantly stay in the core. And all of this work that's going on the outside for each of the industries and different aspects of society, they'll continually be drawn in, be engaging with the core, and the core will just stay. These outer edges need work, and it's what Hypha Culture says, that if we self-organize and work with the concept of a spore, this mycelium seed, this starting point, this activator, which could be a person, an organization, social business, but specifically for this strategy, it's a product, a device, a tool, it's a gizmo, a widget. And this widget has independent internet, it's got a decent amount of data storage, the charge station, it's got off-grid power, it's got its own radio, broadcast capacity, low-tech radio wave system, and it's also got a market issue governance provider, which means that it can legally, lawfully, international law, stand outside of any nation state's hold. If necessary, it can pull that card, but it wouldn't be an overtly advertised aspect to the story. It would just be like a security measure, an insurance policy, because inevitably there may be some resistance at some point, in certain areas, maybe, not necessarily, but possibly. And what the spore does is it facilitates hyphal networks growing. And hyphal networks are these streams. They're streams that are created by parents. So the parents who come along and register with the spore, they're registering their skills and their needs, they eventually gather enough momentum in each industry, whatever it is, to form a strong enough group of parents. And once they form those parent groups, they unlock tasks that are in this Hypha Culture guide. And each of those tasks are specific and assist to collect data around that community, around their identity. And the people collecting this data are able to receive value for it, hype. The same local microcurrency that gets created for each specific spore has a certain amount, a certain quota that are locked up for local development, for specific things like the data collection, like building certain infrastructure. That hype will be attributed to each spore, which will enable more local currency to be in circulation, to be valued. But the value in the data for the local community is that it's stored locally, but once it reaches saturation, it opens up to this global network of grandparents. These conscious businesses, these organizations, they get communicated about each and every area that becomes ready for support. And then these grandparents are able to assist with administrative support, with organizing volunteers, setting up markets. They're like a backup, a business, private sector, even governmental bodies who can directly support the actual workings of these different networks. And the other support of the great-grandparents, which are the advisors. And these advisors can be helping a whole spore, can be helping independent networks, can be assisting in the actual writing of the actual guide for each network. These great-grandparents are an important aspect to the story, and they support its growth. So the idea being that these spores are in coffee shops, in small wholesalers, little kiosks. They're little businesses, micro businesses where people are offering Wi-Fi and charge station and facilitating these local networks forming. And as these local economies form and grow, they connect with other spores and other communities, and they can exchange and trade. And what makes the whole system work, what enables it to function and be a true bridge, is the SEPTA, this program, the SEPTA Teller, which enables percentage-based currency in exchange, in negotiations. And by doing that, you enable barter and local currency and even chickens to be exchanged in one negotiation or another. And this tool brings people together, and it enables a society to grow independently from needing to find conventional based currency. So this is just a basic breakdown of this idea and how it can be applicable.